It's September 2024, and we are back. We're Cinema d'Amore. I'm your host, Justin Morgan, and I'm here with
Chuck.
And a new month means a new theme, and this theme is animation. And we're starting with Watership Down. It's a 1978 British film. It is in English. All our animated movies this month are going to be foreign animated movies. I actually don't know too much about some of the history other than some of the things that I see, like the Art Garfunkel song, when the movie starts up. I had never read the book, and now I've seen the movie like 2 or 3 times. I mean, I've heard about this movie for years, and everybody talks about how awful it is. Depressing is probably more so what I heard, and I wasn't expecting it to be so violent. But I don't know. I think that it's actually a pretty great film. I like the weird biblical opening that it has with I guess this was an original director from featurette I was watching. The original person that started this movie, they weren't happy with the direction that what the studio was letting them do, which I don't know. Maybe they were making it too happy or something. The new director stepped in and they used it as the prologue, so it has a different animation style. And I just think that it's crazy that at the time, I think this movie had such a huge production. Like all the artistry and everything that went into it, you're looking at a modern day Pixar film from the from the late 70s. It's the best way that I can put it. Well, the rabbits start off by being assholes since it's like, I don't know, animal genesis. Back in the day, life used to be pretty peaceful. Their version of God, Firth, he's the sun. He's the provider. I wish I knew more about, witchcraft and Wicca. I didn't buy the book, and now I am very, very unprepared for witchcraft, but I do like that they worship essentially the elements, and they are animals. The animals in the beginning were really, everybody was on an equal playing field, and the rabbits, they just took over. They were eating too much. God said to the Abraham version of the rabbits that if you don't get your people under control, I'm going to do something about it. He doesn't get his people under control, so the sun god gives every animal a unique characteristic. Most of them are carnivores, and they eat rabbits, and they basically kill a shit ton of rabbits. And the god says to the Abraham rabbit, "Did you learn your lesson?" The cartoon's funny because he's just trying to avoid the fact that God's talking to him, and he's like hiding out. But he does give him his own sort of, yeah, you have to bless my ass. And he makes him a cottontail. I'm thinking deer. Yeah, he becomes a cottontail, and they give him like the ability of like speed and cunningness and strategy to survive in the wilderness now. So then we cut to, I'm assuming, rather modern times. I mean, this movie could be pretty modern now. Like, there's nothing that we really see that makes us think that it would be like decades ago. So, they're not using their cell phones or anything like that. They don't have technology. The technology that we see is pretty simplistic, hunting shit. Nothing wild. Yeah, they're not like armed to the teeth, which would be interesting. Type of movie would you consider this? Because I obviously see the political side of it. I can see it being like a political film, and I can also see it being sort of a war film. It's like a prequel to Final Destination. There's a vision and lots of characters die. There's rabbit ghosts, there's rabbit premonitions, there's rabbit factions. I mean, growing up, I didn't watch this movie. The closest thing that I probably saw to this was Bambi. Yeah, I never saw. They should be showing this to people. I mean, if you think about it, it's nothing's really out of the ordinary. You just don't have Mufasa telling the audience about the circle of life and that it's just a natural thing that happens. This is just a bunch of rabbits like, what the fuck? There's a Grim Reaper rabbit. I don't think any rabbit really dies the same way. There's this vision that Fiverr has, the apocalypse, basically. He convinces his brother and a bunch of other rabbits that they should leave their faction, their warren. I don't know. It looked like they convinced maybe like 30 rabbits to go, but there's like a rabbit Gestapo that stopped most of them, so only like 7 or 8 rabbits or whatever get out. They're all males except for that first rabbit that gets eaten by the hawk. I want to say the rest of the movie's downhill from there, but literally Watership Down is a hill. It's literally uphill. It's figuratively downhill from that point on. There's just this random bird there that is, he's actually kind of friendly to them, though. He's like, "Hey, you idiots, you're never going to survive on your own because you can't populate. You're just all male rabbits. Yeah, Hazel, who's more or less the main character, the brother of the rabbit that had the premonition, he's also the leader that everybody's following, is like, fuck yeah, you're right. And he's his eyes in the sky for a little bit, and he's like, hey, I know where there's some does if you want them. It's this farm that has like this crazy ass dog and this cat. It doesn't help either that when they do finally go to get the does and they make noise, humans run out of the house with a gun like within seconds. What the hell is going on that in the countryside? You're out the door that fast. Thinking like a fox or something got into the rabbits. But yeah, there's all different types of factions of rabbits, too. There's, like, communist rabbits. There's a society of rabbits that don't have any sort of leader. They just get all this food, and the only one that thinks that there's something strange about it is the one that had the premonition. It's like, nah, this is too good to be true. There's something weird. There's something weird about these guys. Like, they're all hiding in these corridors, and they're not coming out. It's just something wrong about it. The tough rabbit, Bigwig, follows him and says, listen, don't ruin a good thing for us. And then on his way back, he gets caught in a snare, and it's ultra graphic. He's like suffocating and bleeding from his mouth, and they are so fucking slow to get the snare off of him. And they literally think he's dead, but he isn't dead. He say like he's running in rabbit heaven or something like that. Yeah, it gets pretty dark. As violent as this movie is and can be, being that it's kind of like nature, like this is the way things are. This is an order of things that we don't have any say in. Don't remember if it's the author of the book that this is based off of or the director, but one of those two people, they just really wanted to make a movie about rabbits. And it just sounded so funny because I'm like, I don't know. If you just wanted to make it about rabbits, you put in a hell of a lot of other things in there. Martin Rosen, the author, he definitely has to be a weed guy, or if not like eating random mushrooms in the woods kind of guy. Also, I believe it's Hazel is voiced by John Hurt, which I think is pretty cool. Roy Kinnear too. Roy Kinnear, who does he play? I'm not sure. Pipkin, the little rabbit. Pipkin. They did do another Watership Down for Netflix. I didn't see that version. I'm interested in it, but I'm more interested in seeing Plague Dogs, if I'm going to be honest. I just want to be around in this time, I guess. To be doing animation in the 70s and being like, the guy that did Plague Dogs, just give him another shot. Give him Watership Down. This doesn't even have the brightest of colors. This is kind of very bleak in the way that it's shot. The opening probably was the brightest, most colorful part of the whole thing. The animation also is kind of realistic. Like the very first shot you see, I think it's Hazel. His eye kind of does like the Ren and Stimpy / SpongeBob thing where it's like hairy and it's like way too detailed. Yeah, and then when they back off of him in the next shot, he's just kind of like a generic cartoon rabbit. I mean, I guess rabbits are pretty easy to get around to learn to draw. I think they kind of slowly get more grayish. It almost seems like a void of color by the time they get to the end with that rabbit Woundwort, the one that looks like he's foaming at the mouth from rabies or some shit. And he's like this dictator rabbit. I love this. I mean, I just eat this up. Just like, there's more or less Jesus, prophetic rabbit. Hazel's group is trying to make like a democracy or something. I don't necessarily know what the first would be. The people that they originally left in the beginning, their rabbit that was real old, Holly. So they break from the monarchy because of their religious needs. But they're also right about their religious warning that they had. Communism doesn't work. Fascism doesn't work. Democracy does work. Because we do at least get the Grim Reaper saying that, like, yeah, you're okay. Everything will be fine. Which I feel like is just a thing that people say whenever other people are dying anyways. It's okay. Shit's not going to hell. Don't worry about it. Just keep going. I really like the style of this too. Like, it kind of makes me think of like it looks like an old storybook. Like, I don't know anything about the actual book Watership Down, but I almost imagine that if it is like a children's book, that it's drawn it's actually like you have to read it. I imagine if there was a kid's version of the book, it would look like this. I really think I can envision that beginning to read book for children and the animation looking like exactly like this. I don't know. I've been hearing things about this for a long time. Finally watched it, and I don't really think that it's horrific. I think that it is a lot more violent than I was expecting it to be. I think that would absolutely be a fun movie to throw in for your kids if you had no idea. You're like, I don't know, it's just a kid's movie. Everybody's just dying in it. These horrible, horrible deaths. One rabbit's like choking on its own blood. Like, yeah, that's just how rabbits are. Yeah, they do, and they do rip each other apart. The one rabbit, Fiver, has a second premonition or a dream or something about a dog on the field, and these are supposed to be warnings, I think, but Hazel's like, you know what, that's actually a pretty good idea. I know exactly what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yeah, they go and they get that dog released, and the dog just like shreds the fascist rabbits to pieces. I think there's a sequel. I don't know if there's a sequel movie, but there's definitely a sequel book. Sometime passes between when we get to the epilogue of the movie, which is more or less that Hazel's democracy or whatever is taken off, and Watership Down's pretty good, like a good place to live and a good place to be. He dies a natural death, and he follows the Grim Reaper to the rabbit afterlife. I don't think it gets cooler than that, Chuck. It's just like, yeah, just go to sleep. Just close your eyes. Come with me. Maybe it's a little devastating. I don't know. It's definitely not the types of movies that we grew up with. I mean, we more or less have, I thought Lion King was sad, and they do talk about the circle of life, but we didn't really see like the hyenas like viciously murdering little animals constantly. We just saw a bunch of bones and was like, that's what they should have done in the remake. I mean, that's kind of what the Watership Down Netflix show looks like. I mean, I wouldn't say the animation looks that realistic, but it's 3D models of the rabbits. And I'm all in if there's a Grim Reaper rabbit and Jesus rabbit. Yeah, I just thought this was an interesting way to open up the animation, because I think that a lot of people have heard of this movie and a lot of people haven't seen this movie. I remember hearing about this when I was a kid, but it was always like kind of what we're discussing now, like a joke. Like, oh, we should show him Watership Down. You know what they did show me? They showed me Song of the South. They thought that was an important movie for me to see. And maybe we will cover that at some point. I think that is something interesting that we should talk about. Of all the animated movies that were going through my head, I was thinking about more or less staying away from Disney, and not necessarily staying away from things that are popular, but maybe we could just have a good discussion about something that more or less isn't watched that much. They do have different art styles. It's all hand-drawn. I think by the time we get to yours and mine, the animation's starting to be done by computers or having a computer element to it. It's funny, too, how, like, raw this movie looks for having how many artists and being able to pull off what they were able to do. The budget was $2.4 million in the late 70s. That is a pretty big fucking movie for an animated movie. You were on my mind, too, whenever I was picking something, because I kind of want to go in a way that maybe something you haven't seen before. And the minute you were like, I haven't seen this before, I haven't seen your other one before, I was like, all right, I'm set. We'll do those two movies. See how Chuck feels about it. And I think the first thing you said, I'd have to go back, was like uplifting. This is an uplifting movie. And I know you're joking, but it kind of is by the end. A precautionary tale. You have to stay away from these types of people, and you got to stick to your beliefs. It'll all work out. Kind of the motto of the movie. I wouldn't say it's the primary theme, I think. I don't even know what that would be, I guess. Would it be let nature take its course? I love the perspective of them, too, of the rabbits, and they have their own rabbit language, and they can't understand, like you were talking about. He has the premonition, and they're going to be doing construction, and the signs there, so the audience can, we know what's going on, but they still don't know what's happening. And they also have crazy names for other animals and people, and part of their own language, I guess, slipping through. I would have been interested in reading this book, Watership Down, but apparently this adaptation is like pretty spot on. So I'm sure there's shit missing, but it doesn't really stray far from that plot at all. It says it was the last film work of Zero Mostel, who looks like the Fiddler on the Roof guy. Is that who he is? Yes, he is. He's the Fiddler on the Roof guy. He's in the producers. Jesus, here we go. So it's a good movie to end on, I guess. I was just trying to look real quick and see who the fuck did he play. He's the seagull. There you go. He's the seagull.
Makes sense.
I mean, it really does make a lot of sense, doesn't it? I'm sure I'd recognize the rest of the people, but I'm not recognizing them by name. But that's okay. We don't really care. Where do you kind of rate this movie? Did you enjoy it? Did you love it? Did you hate it?
I did enjoy it. I think, I don't know, it does have a weird feeling to it. I think I like the first half better than the second half. Like, I liked more just their escape. Like, it feels like it just really does have like it has like, feels like it has a hard part where almost like you'd expect like a title card to say part 2 or something like that. Or if it was a mini series or something, it'd be the second half of it when they, once they get to the hill, and then it's like they're just hanging out and someone says, oh, yeah, there's no females here. And then that just starts the second half of the movie, where then all of a sudden we're introduced to these other characters like Woundwort, and he has to go undercover to Bigwig has to go undercover to their Warren, and then they feel like two.
Hey, you know what? Maybe
pieces.
You came up with something there. Maybe the story was originally going to end with we made it to our hill, and this is our own Warren. The end, and they ended it, and then somebody was like, "They're all going to die," and they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" And they're like, they're all males, so they're not going to be able to reproduce, and that idea is not going to work. And then the author was like, oh, shit, and he had to keep going. But I can only guess. What movie are you doing next week?
Doing Waltz with Bashir.
I haven't
watched in a long time.
I haven't seen it since it came out, which I think wasn't it nominated for Academy Award or something, like foreign film?
Yeah, I think it was in the foreign picture category, and I don't think it won. I can't remember what did win that year.
Probably
this was like 2008, I think.
Oh, 2008? I have no idea. Probably like Taxi to the Dark Side or something. That was probably a documentary. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I'm not doing too hot.
You're just all over the place there.
Not too
with your
far
ideas.
Off. Spirited Away was off by like 5 years, and I would say Taxi to the Dark Side's probably the late 2000s. But it would have been documentary, and that Waltz with Bashir would not have been. Probably some movie we completely forgot about.
Something came out that year. We'll figure it out by the time we
There's just no word because nothing came out that year.
Yeah,
failing.
There was not a single international film was released in 2008.
But yeah, we'll be discussing that next week. I mean, America has it pretty much covered, the animation market, to the point that I don't know what the last British animated movie I would have watched would have been. I guess it would have to be
one of those ones that you just
Wallace and Gromit type thing or something, right?
Maybe that's
like
another good. I don't know why we just keep relating everything to funny memes we've seen, but there was like a good one. Someone had there was like Hayao Miyazaki's reaction to, I think it was Howl's Moving Castle, lost animated feature to Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were Rabbit. He looks so angry. Like he's like, I pour my heart and soul into this film, and that ugly rabbit and a stupid British man won Best Animated Film. Like he seems so mad that his movie lost to that.
And I just saw something recently that's funny where they were talking about it's the same award type thing, but they were talking about Martin Scorsese. They're like, the man has only won one movie, and you know what it was for? A remake. He's had so many original movies, and he's won for just the remake, and that's it. He's not won for anything.
But it was a pretty good remake.
I mean, The Boy and the Heron was similar. It did win. I was hoping that it would. I thought it was the best movie, but I really did think Across the Spider-Verse really did have a chance to wipe it out. And I don't think Miyazaki was there. Like I don't think he went for the award because he's like, I am not going back after that Wallace and Gromit thing.
He's never showing up again.
I just think the Godzilla -1 people were like the only Japanese people there. We're going to continue animation for the next 2 weeks, and then we're going to move into exactly what you would expect us to go into in October.
Yeah, pretty obvious.
It's very obvious. And thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you then.
All right, that was our episode. Thanks for listening.
We are Cinema d'Amore. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with news and information on upcoming episodes. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, Alexa, or iHeartRadio. It would be greatly appreciated if you subscribe to our podcast on your platform of choice. We also appreciate feedback, so rate us, review us, and let us know what you think. And above all else, thank you for listening.